Welcome back, crew. Pathfinder 2E Remaster is finally out, and today we're going to be going over just some high level likes and dislikes about the changes, so some roses and thorns about the new Pathfinder 2E Remaster. And probably we're going to kick it off with one of my favorites. And this was a little bit of a not a hardship, took a little bit of work, we'll say, to get, but shout outs to them for the sketch covers for the new remaster editions. I got the player's core sketch cover, which big shout out to my friendly local game store, Blue Ridge Games in Grand Rapids. They were able to help me pre-order and get my copy of the core rulebook. I didn't do the GM's core for the sketch cover, but yeah, it was really cool. If I'm a sucker for black and white art, so I love this design. Definitely one of my favorite covers I've got on my shelf. So super happy to get it. One little thorn I would sneak in there. For those who didn't know, the only way to get a copy of the Sketch Core edition was to work at the local game store, which I think is a really cool thing to do. And it's great to be able to support some of the small businesses out there. So really, well, this is a nitpicky thorn for me because it's a really good thing they did. But I do wish for those who are subscribed to Pathfinder 2E's like subscription core rulebook box, we're able to get an option for the sketch covers. But worked out because I was able to get the sketch cover for the player's core book, and I got my GM's core and an extra player's core book mailed to me. Luckily, one of my players needed a core book, so it worked out on that side. I like in the PDF, and that's one of the cool things you do get with doing the subscription box with Pathfinder 2E. But overall, major rose. I love the black and white art. I hope they do this to the player's core book too. I'm gonna get that second one as well, and have some cool black and white entries in my book. So really, really great art design there. All right, let's get into the actual mechanics of the system. So probably one of my favorite changes, and if you watched my review of the Pathfinder 2E system way back in January, one of the biggest complaints I've had for this system was that alignment was so baked into it. I didn't like it before, and I'm so happy that with the remaster, alignment has been pulled out. That's probably one of the best silver linings to come out of the whole OGL mess, is that now alignment won't be a major factor within Pathfinder 2E. I love the systems that they've replaced it with. Uh, Nethmas and edicts, and I probably butchered that, is a far better way to run the gods, the champions, the clerics, everybody that kind of falls under those lines. Because this, to me, in my homebrew worlds, gods don't really fit neatly into lawful good, evil, neutral, all of that type of stuff. They are complex beings. They usually care about whatever their goals are and what they demand of their followers, and I think Anathema's and Edict really captures that well. I'd actually need to go through and build them out for my homebrew world just so everybody has something on that side. I think it's just a better way for that. It allows for more complex characterization for both the gods as well as your player characters, where they're not kind of pigeonholed into a lawful good box. They're kind of given the guidelines of their gods to choose to follow if they wish to or not, with consequences coming if they don't follow it, which flows really well for me. Along those lines, too, I'm happy that they took out the alignment damages and replaced it with spirit and the holy and unholy variants of that. I like that. I like how the clerics can get consecrated to either deal holy or unholy damage with some of their strikes and spells. I think that's just a cool flavor piece, especially with the consecrated action along with it too. That's I like that. That's I think one of my favorite changes on that side. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of how that works. But definitely getting rid of alignment is something that really is a big bump for me because I was going to be using the old GM or GM's book kind of rules, the no alignment rules, and those were getting clunky. So this was perfect timing for me in my upcoming campaign. Now, along with that, there is a little bit of a major thorn on the side. Because in the core rulebook, they broke. There are going to be two versions. So the PF Core 1, which came out recently, and 2 will be out in, I think, July-ish. And they split up two classes. I think one of them should have been with the first. So they had Clerics, which is majorly impacted by the alignment rules due to how the gods flow. But along those same side, champions were also significantly impacted, but they're going to be coming out to the second core rulebook. I think they should have been bumped to the first. There's so many changes that are going to come along with those guidelines, especially because the champions, like they have their not archetypes, but their subclasses, for lack of a better way to put it, being a liberator, a paladin. I forgot the other one, blanking on it, redeemer. There we go. with those ones, they were tied to the alignments. So taking that out and kind of putting the anathemas and edicts in there, I think it's gonna be a little bit of a disruptor for it. Now, credit to Paizo, they did release some errata on that side to help make it easier, but I truly feel like they could have either bumped one of the other classes out or even just added an extra class into the core rulebook and kept champions in. I know it's going to be extra work, and which is why they kind of pushed that back into the next release, but I think it would have just flown smoothly for both the players and game masters who are going to be having champions in their campaign to just have that full view of what things will be now with the changes. So, a couple cool, quick roses of thorns there. Let's go into a new one. So, another rose, I like the new refocus rules. I'll be honest, I was playing this way beforehand, but now at least I'm playing rules as written. The old rules used to be complex, not complex, but there was limits to how much focus you could get back at one time. The new rules, you still have your three focus point cap, but you could spend 10 minutes to get one focus point back. And if you spend 30 minutes, you can get all three of your focus points back. I think it's simpler. I think it makes everything a little bit more straightforward and less confusing for the players, which is a major boon for me. So, going from that side, another big rose on there too. Between some feats as well as some of the subclasses within, let's say cleric and bard, the Gish type characters got a major bump. I'm gonna pick on the Warrior Muse Bard now, because before it used to be one that if you were a flavor that kind of led you to that area. If you just really wanted to play a Gishy type caster, you could play that, but it'd be a little bit more hamstrung, we'll say. But with some of these changes, especially some of the changes to your weapon scaling in regards to proficiency, and especially the new Bard one with some of the changes to your Inspiring Courage composition with the Warrior Bard, just a lot of like things like that, especially with the Cleric one too, that make it a lot easier to play a gift type character, which are always my favorite type. So I was happy to see those and happy to make them more available on that side. So even with some feats too, if you wanted to pick up a weapon type, they have scaling for the armor as well as weapon proficiencies there too, so it can scale with you as you go, which makes them far more worthwhile and kind of advantageous to pick up. So definitely a big rose there. But let's flip it a little bit to the Thorn side. There's two Thorns, they kind of both revolve around spell casting. My biggest one, I will say, as I was a little disappointed with the removal of spell casting mods from casting cantrips. So before, you used to be able to add, like, if you were a wizard, you could add your intelligence mod to some of your cantrip damage. Now they've removed that. They have doubled the dice typically. And I know somebody will point this out in the comments. Mathematically, now you can actually get higher than the damage used to be with the old rules. But while you can get higher, your ceiling's higher, your floor is also lower too. And I think, and this is not a debate we're going to get into right now, but there's always a big debate between how much damage casters should be able to do compared to marshals. With some believing that the casters are below the marshal, too far below the marshals in damage. And with this, I know you can get higher damage, but I think players are going to miss that consistency that the mod had, especially for some of the classes too. I mean, some of the Gishy classes like Magus probably a little happy they don't have to worry about their mod now. But I feel like this does kind of lower that a little bit. And I think that's a bit of a mistake there. I would have loved if they made it a variant rule where players could choose if they wanted to have their mod to the damage or to have the higher damage dice, so they could kind of have a little bit of ownership in that conversation. But definitely something that's unfortunately not in there and a bit of a thorn with the new rules. Along those lines, too, is they get rid of a lot of the attack spells. What I mean by that is like the attack roll spells, we should say. So like ones where where instead of somebody making a spell check or kind of a save on that side, you'd be able to make an attack roll on that. And I know those ones always had some controversy surrounding them, but I feel like, especially for casters, the wizards, the sorcerers, it can sometimes get old having the game master being the one that's always rolling your saves and all that. It's always nice to be able to whip out an attack and get some of the damage in that way. So I do hope with the player's core too, but I feel like it's a new design philosophy. But I do hope they bring in more attack rolls, especially for our Magus players. I know they're going to have some trouble if they don't get some more attack rolls or some changes to their rules on that side. Perfect. So one of my last big kind of roses on this side too is I liked some of the changes they made, just the layout. One of the biggest being between the spell rank versus level. So because before you used to have player level and spell level, and players got confused if they were new to this kind of genre. They're thinking that a level 3 player should be able to cast level 3 spells, but it didn't work that way. So I'm very happy that they're calling spell levels, spell ranks. I think that are much clearer, less room for confusion. Along the same lines, too, I'm happy that they got rid of scores for your abilities and keeping it all to the modifier. The scores really like they're just an old function, don't really serve much purpose there. So I think having the modifiers just makes things cleaner and kind of flow better there. But yeah, those are my big roses. Last two thorns I've got, probably the biggest being with the GM core. The GM core, I was expecting, and this is probably me being out of line a little bit with my expectations and kind of what they've mentioned. But the GM's core doesn't really have many it's anything new, really, if you already have the old edition for it. It's one that I bought it. I would have bought it. I probably would have bought it either way. Uh, but for somebody that already has one, I probably would recommend, unless you just really want to have it to complete your bookshelf collection, it's really not worth buying. Because it basically has all of the variant rules and subsystems and all the things that, or well, it has some of the variant rules and subsystems that were present in the old version, and then some of the ones that were present in the old core rulebook kind of combined into one. Not many changes, not many additions, not really any new changes or additions. They updated chases a little bit, but not far enough, in my opinion, with one of the subsystems there. So just a little bit disappointing on that side, and also kind of on the disappointing end too. Is they actually removed some of the variant rules too. One of my favorite being Ancestral Paragon was taken out. And now I know somebody's going to mention in the comments that you could, as long as they say if it hasn't been reprinted or changed, you could still use the old stuff. But I would have preferred the new core, GM core, to be kind of the definitive edition and not have less than kind of what came before it. So a little bit, that's a significant rose for me, or thorn, I'll say on that side. And then the final thorn is this one's real nitpicky. This is a me thing. Uh, I just miss some of the old OGL names, like Neeflims, I think they're called now, which kind of result the extra planar creatures, which used to be like Tieflings and Aasimar. I prefer those old names. I'm still going to be using those old names in my campaign, but I completely get why they had to do it with all the OGL stuff and Wizards of the Coast going crazy. So this is a real nitpicky one, but what I wanted to bring up because I know a lot of people kind of miss some of those names like True Strike and things like that they're used to uh, that have been updated in the new book. But overall, super hyped for the remaster. I like these changes. Can't wait for the new core rulebook 2 to come out too, or Players Book 2, I should say. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Or Players Core 2. But yeah, shout out in the comments what some of your favorite things the remaster have been, or maybe some things you didn't like with the remaster. Or even things you'd like me to cover more, because we really did a high level overview of this. And I'm getting into real Pathfinder 2E mode because we're gonna be getting ready to start streaming our new campaign in my homebrew world of Fantasia. We're kicking that off in 2024, so keep an eye out for that. And if you're interested in playing a little bit, let me know because we're going to be doing some one shots in the Pathfinder 2E universe. And we're actually holding our first one November 30th, which is Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be streaming it too, so if you can't play, keep an eye out for it. And if you're interested, check the link below and get a chance to come play with me and the crew. But yeah, shout outs there and definitely like, subscribe, comment, and let me know something cool you like with the system and keep an eye out for some more Pathfinder 2E content. Till next time.